Hello, I am Elizabeth Upenieks, the Curatorial Assistant at deCordova Sculpture Park and Museum in Lincoln. We are part of the Trustees, which is Massachusetts' largest conservation and preservation organization, with 118 properties across the Commonwealth. Today, I'm giving you part 2 of the collage tour that my colleague Sam Adams started last week. I will be focusing on All the Marvelous Surfaces, Photography since Karl Blossfeldt, an exhibition currently on view and organized by deCordova's senior curator, Sarah Montross, along with myself. All the Marvelous Surfaces, Photography since Karl Blossfeldt, came from looking at deCordova's large holdings of photography in our permanent collection. Some of the oldest pieces in the collection include a handful of photographs from the photographer Karl Blossfeldt, who lived in Germany from his birth in 1865 until his death in 1932. This exhibition presents a new reading of the history and trajectory of modern and contemporary photography by placing Blossfeldt at the starting point. His focus on patterning, scale, and surface detail can be traced through photography up to the current day. My tour will examine the work of 3 artists featured in All the Marvelous Surfaces, who use collage in a variety of ways. This first image is from Karl Blossfeldt, entitled Trefoil and created before 1928. It is made up of 32 contact prints of various photographic processes, mounted on cardboard. All the Marvelous Surfaces contains a reprint of the collage that can be found on the 2nd floor of the museum. Considered as one of Blossfeldt's working collages, viewers get an inside look at Blossfeldt's secretive process of selecting which photographs to share with others. Blossfeldt was not a photographer by trade. He began his career as a sculptor and eventually became an art instructor in Berlin. Blossfeldt started taking photographs of plant forms to create references for his students. He even created his own photographic device to take the detailed photographs of various plants that he is known for today. It is not until the publication of his first book, Art Forms in Nature, that Blossfeldt is seen as photographer first and foremost. A fortunate find in 1997 led to the discovery of 61 working collages in Blossfeldt's estate. They were a complete revelation as they were previously unknown to scholars and archivists, with no mention of the works by Blossfeldt himself. Each of the collages reveal Blossfeldt's systematic process and how he came to choose the images that would eventually make up Art Forms in Nature. This photo book, published in 1928, would catapult Blossfeldt from a sculptor and teacher into an acclaimed photographer almost overnight. Blossfeldt's other working collage on display is titled Pumpkin, Tendril, and Bryony. It is also dated before 1928 and consists of 25 contact prints of various photographic processes mounted on cardboard. With over a dozen images of the pumpkin tendrils just on this collage, we see Blossfeldt's intense concentration on the curly forms naturally made, as well as further stylized by his own hands. The marks on this page clearly show Blossfeldt meticulously going through each form and deciding which ones are worth publishing and which ones are not. Each collage allowed Blossfeldt to lay out multiple photographs of a single plant to compare and contrast its different parts and configurations. Much like contact sheets used by film photographers throughout time, these collages allow for closer looking before a photograph is developed to its proper size. We can see Blossfeldt's economical style through the multiple photographs that contain more than one plant form in a single image, saving him time and resources. These collages bend the typical notion of what a collage is made up of and its intention. Going back to Sam Adams' description of collages as found material brought together to create connections between disparate images, Blossfeldt's collages clearly don't align with that definition. Instead, these pieces represent an artist using his own images to compare and contrast formal elements of shape and size to create the pleasing aesthetic harmony found in his iconic monograph, Art Forms in Nature. Moving up to the third floor Lindy Gallery, Mary Jean Viano Crow's Reliquary is hard to miss. As the largest work she has made to date, it is 18 feet in width and 8 feet tall. Crow spent a year, from 1987 to 1988, working on this massive collage, often pulling all-nighters in between days she was teaching. Using only gelatin silver prints that she polychromed with photographic toners, Crow made the piece entirely of photographs she took and vintage photographs she found. This large-scale collage contains hundreds of images comprised of negatives that Crow scratched into and scotch taped together to create the large figures seen between the ancient columns. By scratching and physically altering the negatives in photographs, she changed the physical composition of the images. Her marks are not superficial and merely found on the surface. Instead, they are integral and become a physical part of the pieces through her use of chemical toners and etched-in marks. For Crow, using collage is a way to sift through and incorporate the many ideas she goes through while making art. Likewise, her inspiration comes from disparate sources such as Roman mythology, the surrealist paintings of Frida Kahlo and Remedios Varo, and the conceptual work of Sophie Calle. In Reliquary, we see Crow intertwine her own personal history by having her models wear her wedding dress, while also referencing ancient Greek history by including a colonnade of fluted columns reminiscent of an ancient Greek temple entrance. Her collaging of photographs, materials, and ideas come together to create an altarpiece whose patron saint is women. From her models to the doll forms atop columns to the use of a white wedding dress, viewers are asked to consider the relationship and context of each item. Crow uses collage to synthesize her many ideas and inspiration into one piece of art that makes a viewer slow down and closely examine the dreamlike composition in front of them. For our final pieces on today's tour, we will look at two photographs by the artist Lucas Blalock. On the left is Strawberries (Fresh Forever), and on the right is Strawberries (Forever Fresh). Both images were made in 2014 and are archival inkjet prints. The two photographs are on loan from private collectors. The images share the same dimensions at 19 3/4 inches tall by 15 3/4 inches wide. Blalock is an American photographer known for blending the boundaries between reality and digital intervention. Here we see two photographs that are almost exactly identical. Atop a wooden surface is a sheet of bubble wrap covered in a lopsided grid of strawberries and strawberry candies. At first, one may not notice the intentional imperfections created by Blalock in Photoshop. Soon, the visible seams from Photoshop's clone tool take over the viewing of the image, forcing the viewer to question whether the strawberry or the strawberry candy came first. This digital collage of at least two photographs disrupts reality by revealing the digital manipulation Blalock utilizes. By using Photoshop not to conceal, but rather reveal his edits, is an attempt to make viewers conscious of the editing processes at play in everyday images, from advertisements to the news. While his work creates funny and amusing juxtapositions, he creates transparency around photography, the studio, and the camera, typically opaque processes hidden behind closed doors and in digital files. The collages before us not only combine multiple photographs into two scenes, but also bring together many sensations through the materials he used in the original images. Just by looking at the scene, one can imagine the bubble wrap between your fingers, the smell of fresh strawberries, and the sugary artificial flavoring of the wrapped candies. He goes beyond the photo paper to create a collage of sensation in the viewer's mind, activating multiple senses at once. Thank you all for joining me on a deCordova virtual visit, part 2 of the collage tour. Please check back next week for another installment investigating the collages of Peter Hutchinson.